music, and in this video I want to do a little something different. I want to talk about the most important gear purchases I made in the last 10 years, what they were and why. So let's get right into it. So here we go in no particular order. Number 5, the Bugera G5 Infinium. So I started playing around 1990 or 91. It didn't take long to hook up with some friends and form bands, and back then the thing to do was to have big tube or solid state amps, 50 to 100 watts. Over the next several years I held on to a lot of that gear I had as a kid, but things changed and needs changed, and I wasn't really playing out anymore, just jamming with some buddies. So it made sense to pick up a smaller low watt tube amp and to be able to crank that up in situations where you usually wouldn't be able to. Was a lot of fun. Plus the amp had some of the more modern features at the time, the built-in attenuator, direct recording. That amp was a lot of fun and showed that the big 50 to 100 watt amps weren't really necessary anymore. Number 4, the Line 6 UX2. During those real early times, when we would record with a band, we would have a cassette recorder with a single microphone hanging somewhere in the room. Later on, we graduated to multi-track cassette recorders. And later still, when discovering computer software, even then we used the multi-track recorders as somewhat of a mixer to be able to record into the computer. So finding the Line 6 UX1 and 2 later on was a big deal for us. Not only because it was a better way to record, but the PodFarm software that came with it was my first experience with any kind of amp sims. I continued to use that UX2 all the way up until January of last year, when I moved on to the PreSonus audio box. But honestly, I could still be using it. It just worked that well. Number 3 happened about 3 years ago. I was real late to that. My first experience with impulse response and the Sonic IR pedal. I was pretty impressed with the sounds and results I got out of using that pedal, and it costs around $50. I used that for a while, but I had tube amps that I wanted to be able to record using IRs also, and I knew I needed a Loadbox. That led me to the 2 Notes torpedo captor with the Cab M Plus, which I've been using ever since. But that's just me. I wanted a little more control and variety, but anyone who wants to just plug in and get a decent sound could easily use the Sonic IR forever. The Sonic or the 2 Notes, I would highly recommend either one. Number 2 is a soldering iron. During COVID, I found myself with a little bit of extra time, not much. I was still an essential worker, but I started to get into projects and parts casters and pickup swaps and things of that nature. So I bought my first soldering iron and I started learning more about setups and maintenance. And that's good stuff to know, especially now that there's a lot of great inexpensive guitars out there. The unfortunate thing about inexpensive guitars is that the quality control isn't always the greatest. But if you're able to do your own setups and maintenance, you can save yourself a lot of money and still have a great guitar. And number 1. There had to be a guitar on this list at some point, right? This Paul Reed Smith Wood Library McCarty from 2015. I would consider this the perfect guitar. The way it plays, the way it sounds, the quality of the build. But that's not why it's important. It's important because it showed me how great guitars in all kinds of price ranges could be. don't get me wrong, I love this guitar and I'll probably have it forever, but it didn't make me want to throw all my other guitars away. It didn't make me only want to have high-end guitars. I have guitars, you've seen them in videos here, at a fraction of the price that I enjoy just as much and use just as often, if not more. For a lot of us guitar players, the longer we play, the more we want to upgrade, move up to the next level. But you can also upgrade yourself out of the gear you enjoy. So when the time is right, get that custom chopped Les Paul or Strat. In the meantime, enjoy that Epiphone and that Squire. You might find that they speak to you more than the expensive stuff does. So that's my list. If you have a list, drop it in the comments. I'd love to see it. And if you enjoyed this video or found any of it useful, hit like and subscribe on the way out. Thanks.